Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I just wanted to go over the Tariq changes that we've seen in the past 2 days here with different patches coming out, and just talk about what it means for the character as far as with his current meta talent build that we've been running, the lightning build, the changes that have been made to that so that now we have more options to go with. So let's just go over the patch notes real quick. Just to recap on that and set the stage, and then we'll talk about the different talents that we can play with now. So, starting off with the original patch from 2 days ago, heavy strike damage and face breaker damage increased by 50%, and their static fury generation was increased a little bit as well. Wild swing damage was increased by 100%, so now it still does 0 damage. Chain lightning now deals damage 6 times from 5 times, but also still nerfed pretty much because Thunderstruck, which is the talent you always took, that made Chain Lightning bounce 3 times, now makes it only bounce twice. So overall, nerf. Chain Lightning damage was also reduced by 50%, which is massive nerf since it was our second highest overall damaging ability. This absolutely gutted the ability and also hurt our Fury generation pretty significantly. Skull Crusher damage increased by 10%. Culling Strike damage increased by 54%, which is pretty nice actually. The additional damage, lightning damage that was dealt during Heavy Strike, Skull Crusher, and Hammerstorm while Thundercall was active was reduced down to 30% from 50%, which pretty nasty. Definitely hurt a lot. And Schism talent, which wasn't really played before, got a pretty significant buff here to 3.2 procs per minute up from 1.2. The damage bonus was reduced to 200% down from 300% just to compensate for the increased proc rate. Legendary Neck did get nerfed slightly, which is surprising because it's still terrible. This is just to go in line with the baseline buffs they did to Facebreaker. So the overall reason that they were doing these changes was to put some of Tariq's damage into the rest of his kit to make some other talents more viable, make you want to play around maybe with some different build options. Although the kind of overpowering nature of the lightning build certainly I feel like warranted some of these changes. I think they were still a bit too heavy on them. That being said, they very quickly realized that and have a day later gone in and thrown out this hotfix. So this hotfix took the 50% reduction to chain lightning damage and actually just made it 20% instead from the original value. So now it's just a 20% nerf to chain lightning damage. Still, still makes chain lightning a lot weaker than it was, but it's certainly not as devastating. Hammerstorm damage was increased 12.5%, and the lightning damage from Heavy Strike, Skull Crusher, and Hammerstorm during Thundercall was increased by 16%. So bringing back up our AoE from the nerfs a little bit, definitely a big help. Just the flat 12% to Hammerstorm damage is pretty good. Schism talent was also buffed from the 200% that it was brought down to, now back up to 250%. This is to make it more competitive. All right, so getting into looking at the talents here, this is the standard lightning build that we've been running. If you want to keep running the lightning build for now, it's totally fine. It's just weaker than it was before, obviously, because chain lightning has been nerfed a pretty good amount, even with the hotfix. But if you want to get into some new talent builds and try some things out, now is definitely the time to do so, because there isn't really a deterministically best build at the moment. It's still kind of up in the air. People are theory crafting and testing out different builds and finding that a lot of options are actually pretty competitively close with each other. So I would definitely consider testing things out. For sure, Chain Lightning is weaker, so I would highly suggest dropping Thunderstruck and Blood and Thunder at the very least from this typical setup. And then let's put these points into somewhere else. Now, to keep up with Fury generation, I personally have been really enjoying playing with Concatenation. Concatenation, I can't believe I really never touched this talent before today, and I've been playing with it on testing, and I love it. It's great. It increases the tempo of Tariq's gameplay, kind of makes it feel a lot smoother. 2 GCDs per between each heavy strike as opposed to 3. It feels really good, honestly. Anyways, so Concatenation, I've been running with that, and then to get to Schism, I went ahead and dropped Ride the Lightning to get Schism, the third point for Schism. Now, some people might be wondering why not drop Crack the Sky instead. The reason being is twofold. It's one, I don't feel like I'm necessarily Fury starved even during my Thunder Call, although maybe some more testing will tell me otherwise. But for the most part, I feel pretty good with getting most of my Fury generation through the increased speed with Concatenation. And then the additional damage that Crack the Sky provides, even with the nerf to lightning damage, is still really significant for a single point. So this is still a worthy talent, although it is technically weaker than it was before. So I'm keeping this in, getting rid of Ride the Lightning to get the 3rd point for Schism. Now Schism got buffed. It's now looking pretty strong overall. I think a lot of people are enjoying playing with this. And so the way it works is your spenders, your Skull Crusher or Hammerstorm has a chance to make the other one get buffed to do additional bonus damage. It's 250% bonus damage onto that next spender. This tooltip is wrong. They haven't updated it yet. Anyways, so the way that you play around this is in single target, you're spamming your Skull Crusher like normal, and then you get a proc of Schism that will buff your next Hammerstorm. You will still press that Hammerstorm even in single target because it is worth it with the damage bonus. Now, what to note about that, what's cool is that this does open up options for skill expression. Let's say you get a proc in single target for your next Hammerstorm to get increased damage, and you're playing a boss fight where there's an ad phase coming up. Now you have this juiced up Hammerstorm ready to go for when those ads pop up, and you can help nuke them down and cleave them off onto the boss, right? So potential fun moments there where you can really make use of the damage bonus because honestly, that 250% increased Hammerstorm damage is pretty nuts if you can get that off in AoE. That being said, in AoE situations, in typical pulls, you're still going to be pressing your Hammerstorm. I wouldn't recommend trying to really fish for the procs by pressing Skull Crusher unless you are maybe at the end of a pack or something, and there's only like maybe 2-3 targets left, and you might want to try just finishing them off with Skull Crushers to fish for a proc of Schism to then use going into the next pack with all your CDs up. Something like that, I think, could potentially work. Again, have to do more testing, but this is what I like about this talent, is that it gives these options, gives this opportunity to do things that could show off some more skill expression and just be more engaging to play around with. Now, as far as with other talents other than Schism, Square Hammer is honestly not so bad. With the buffs to Heavy Strike, it's actually doing some pretty decent damage on its own, both in single target and honestly not too bad in AoE as well during Thunder Call. The added stacks to it are increasing the damage that it cleaves during Thunder Call, that lightning damage, further enhanced by Crack the Sky, of course. So it's still a pretty decent option, I would say, to consider over Schism. I don't think that it has the same potential. I think that Square Hammer is probably going to be for people that don't want to play around Schism and like the RNG and stuff, and maybe you don't like having to think about and tracking the the two different spenders and stuff. If you want something that's just kind of like a more consistent, it's still like mildly competitive, I think Square Hammer is probably a good pick as an alternative. That being said, any other talents that we could play around with? Them Bones has certainly gained increasingly more value with the advent of Schism now being a strong pick. So what I would suggest doing, even though Them Bones was strong before anyway, it was hard to take because it was purely single target, right? However, now with Schism, if you were to take like, let's say we drop Crack the Sky, we drop Concatenation so that we can get some points to 3 points into Schism, and then we'll throw that one last point into Ride the Lightning for the to keep up Fury generation. You could do something like this potentially that really gives a strong focus on single target, priority target damage. So like I was saying before, if you're playing around Schism and AoE, you get a buffed up Skull Crusher from Schism. You wombo combo this in with a Them Bones proc and a Mouth for War stack, and all of a sudden you got a Skull Crusher that crits for like 500, 600k or something crazy that I've seen. And so I highly suggest just testing it out, at least just to see the insane numbers you can get with this potential combination. Probably potential to be really strong, maybe even worth playing in certain dungeons, maybe, or with certain group comps that need some serious single target. Either way, I think that's just worthy to note. I'm probably still going to be playing this build for now, just to test it out and then maybe change a few things here and there. A couple, or I should say, one honorable mention: left-hand path. I've been seeing people test this one out. I've tested it out a little bit myself. It seems to be okay with the buffs to Facebreaker. It seems to be okay in AoE situations. However, not gonna lie, it pretty much does nothing for you in single target. So that's why I don't suggest taking this. If this were to, at some point in the future, maybe get synergy with the legendary neck, to where the neck actually spread its effect with left-hand path, it might actually be worth dumping this, even just for the value of the synergy there, potentially. I don't know. Either way, it's just fun to think about these different combinations. That's why I'm actually feeling pretty good and optimistic about the patch since it dropped, and I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what people come up with and what is played at the highest level for Tariq. So lastly, I just wanted to real quick go over the potential gearing changes that we're looking at. As far as with stats and stuff like that, really nothing's that different, I would say. Can't say for sure, of course, but for sure, crit still the best. Amethyst gems still the best. With legendary cloak, still probably going to be the best, as it, I think, just has unrivaled AoE potential, and still really good single target as well. However, because of the boots getting buffed, essentially through Culling Strike getting buffed by 54%, now these I think are even more competitive. They weren't bad before, but now I think they're actually competitive as far as with providing a really good single target damage nuke every so often. So I would suggest maybe testing these out if you haven't in a while. I've been testing them out over the last like day or so, and I personally really just prefer playing with that proc effect. I think it's more fun to fill in to the rotation than playing with the cloak. Although, we'll see which one kind of comes out on top overall. That being said, that's going to be it for me today. Having a lot of fun testing things out. Change is always good. And looking forward to, what's coming next in Fellowship. So appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later. Peace.